Hello, YouTube. I decided to try to repair the roof again today. And yes, it was super sunny and hot earlier. And I had bought some more of the elastomeric paint to go up there and try to repair the stuff from the, you know, trying to fix it last time and it rained right after I finished. Well, guess what it did again today? Yep. Looks like we're in the Florida rainy season, which is why I'm trying to fix the roof before it gets even worse. But there is some positive news about this. I don't know if you noticed. I came out here and I was like, holy schmoly, it did it again. What happened was I got out of work and right away I climbed up to the roof even though it was really hot and I painted it. And I didn't finish painting it, but I tried to hit all the spots, that had gotten ruined the first time where I thought the leaks were. And poured the paint, literally poured it onto the roofing to have it fill in the holes. And as you can see, there is something different, special about this. The water itself is clear. So the white that you're seeing on the ground, that was from the first round. So I think for the most part, the paint had time to dry, most of it. I don't see any white edging, running alongside the RV. So I'm assuming, because when I did it like really early in the day while it was still sunny. It had like about 2 or 3 hours, maybe 2 hours. Yeah, I don't see white streaks running down. A little bit over there. But for the most part, I don't see white all along the floor here, along the grass. Which means, or along the walls of the RV. Which means, I think the paint dried before it started to pour rain. I think most of the paint dried. It's just really bad timing, and the reason I'm doing it, some of you might be saying, why is he doing it when it's raining? Well, it wasn't raining. It was sunny and bright and nice. Let me swap this back here. It was sunny and nice earlier, and it looked like it wasn't going to rain. In Florida weather, you can't, it usually rains in the afternoon, like around summer, but I was hoping it wouldn't rain. Because I wanted to get it done and have it ready for hurricane season. So the thing is, I think it managed to dry. Most of it dried because, and in a way it was kind of good because I was actually inside, and this particular rain today, try to start the car up here. This rain today was actually pretty extended. It wasn't like 5 or 10 minutes. It was like 30, 40 minutes. And it rained and rained and rained and rained. Try to get the camera zoomed out a little bit. Alright, you can see me here. But I was inside the RV and I could check for leaks. So it kind of worked out good. I was here earlier and I painted it and I was like crossing my finger that it would dry, and I think it dried because that water that you saw in the puddle, it was clear. It wasn't white. It wasn't cloudy, which means the paint didn't run. At least that's the hope. So I think the paint actually dried, even though officially I think on the can it says like 5 hours. I don't think I had 5 hours. I think I had more like 2 to 3 hours before it actually opened up and started raining. But the fact that the water was dry, the water was clear, means that it didn't run. And there's another bit of proof that it didn't run and may have worked. I was inside the RV while rain was literally pelting the RV, and I was checking all the leak spots, where it had leaked before. It was leaking in the bathroom. It was leaking underneath the bunk bed, the overhang, the cab overhang where the bedding is over the cab. It was also leaking by the refrigerator in the hallway and by the air conditioning vents. the AC unit. So I checked all of it, and as far as I could tell, it wasn't leaking. So I may have fixed all the major leaks. I still have one more can of paint, so I'm going to wait another day when it's sunny and dry again and go make one final pass just to kind of coat the whole roof to make it look nice, you know, so the color matches instead of spotty, where I poured a whole bunch of it where the leaks were. And then where the leaks are, you know, or were, I'm going to go with another coating or two. It's like a really thick coat. It's not regular paint, it's the elastomeric rubberized painting. Okay, so, I mean, rubberized paint. So hopefully it seals it. But as far as I could tell when I was inside, I didn't see wet spots on the ceiling. Before, when it rained a lot, now it didn't rain here. It wasn't crazy rain, but it did rain. I mean, it wasn't like a little sprinkle. But I didn't see any wet spots or any new wet spots. Don't know until you fix the roof and then you look and you see more wet spots, or you leave it off and you look at it. But if you leave it off, that's what the previous people did, and they never got it back on. I want to finish the stupid thing up and start using it, you know, making it like a regular house. So I'm gonna have to cut out the panels that are bad and put in new panels, and then start the painting and trying to detail it and finish it up so that it's like a finished product, a finished project. That's the plan. So hopefully that'll happen over the next couple weeks. What else? That's pretty much it. I'm excited because it wasn't leaking. Now there is one more leak, a new leak. It might have been an old leak, but I didn't notice it until now today. I was inside the RV while it was raining outside, and I actually heard drip, 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 and I was like, oh, jeez. And I couldn't find where the drip was coming from. So I kept looking around, and it sounded like something was dripping and hitting plastic. So I kept looking and looking, and I was like, I wonder if it's like running, you know, like the leak where you see the drip isn't where the leak is. Maybe it ran somewhere and it's dripping along somewhere. But I tried to listen to the sound and tried to narrow in on where it was happening, and I located it. And it turns out the leak is actually from the window, the front window on the, you know, by the dining table. So knowing that, I can fix it. So I didn't deal with it today because I had to leave because it's getting dark and they're locking the storage facility. But it'll be something I'll look at tomorrow to figure out where and I know it's from the top. So leak was going down through the window and leaking on the inside of the window. And it was hitting the plastic on the bottom. So I was like, okay, so we just need to seal that. And then as far as I know, the leaks are done. Which means I can actually try to finish the roofing, you know, the ceiling, and get the RV done. Now, some of you were wondering about the bathroom because that was an issue. I don't know exactly where the leak was coming from. I don't know if it was leak from me using the bathroom, you know, the shower and stuff, or if it's leak from underneath the RV. And I know some people suggested ripping apart the bathtub panel to access there, to look for the hoses, you know, that are apparently there are hoses that the water hoses that run underneath there. But I didn't want to do all that because I didn't want to rip things apart and then I don't have time to deal with it. And then now the RV is like shit. You know, it's in pieces, like how I thought when I bought it. When I bought it, the people who bought it, the guy who bought it before me, he was planning on fixing it up. And he ripped apart the roof, he ripped apart the walls, he ripped apart the furniture, and then he got overwhelmed and gave up. So I don't want to be like that. So, and the RV is mostly usable. So I wanted to keep it like that, even though, you know, it means redoing stuff. But what I did to make the bathroom usable for now, I don't know if the leak situation was from the roof, like leaking down the side and then making the floor wet, or if it's from, which would be bad, from the hoses that are underneath there. The water pressure from the pump, you know, the 12-volt pump, forces like a stream of water to squirt up on the floor and wet it, and then it seeps up from underneath the floor to above the floor. Or if the water spots were happening when I would take a shower and the water was basically hitting the shower, you know, the edge of the tub and spilling over and hitting the flooring. I never really traced it. I never was able to figure out where the leak was coming from. So how did I resolve it? Well, I decided that I'm not going to rip apart the floor. I didn't want to cut the floor open and have a gaping hole on the floor that I would have to deal with, and then hope that I could fix it, get it back. Because the leak is seldom, you know, it's not like all the time. It only seems to happen when there's a lot of water, like a lot of rain, or I'm using the shower every day in there. I decided, you know what, we're just gonna let it keep leaking. I know it's bad, but, or maybe the roof will leak, we'll fix it. I don't know. All I know is it wasn't bad enough for me to rip apart the floor and make the whole bathroom not usable. So what I did was I took, I had been buying a lot of water, bottled water. I took all the bottled water caps. You know, they're about slightly under 1/4 of an inch thick. And I glued all those down using liquid nails onto the existing bathroom floor, which is that wood, you know, that pressed wood. And what that will do is raise up, because I was making a second floor on top of it. So then it raises it up by about a little bit under 1/4 of an inch. And you're like, why would you do that? Well, that way, if it gets wet down there, it won't wet the new floor that's going on top. So it's kind of bad. I have, I potentially have a wet floor. I don't know if it will be wet or not. I don't care. It's like out of sight, out of mind. But the real floor, the one that you stand on, is actually raised up a little bit under 1/4 of an inch. You're standing on a bunch of bottle caps, plastic bottle caps. So I had bought wood that I was going to put down there, but then I decided, you know what? I'm not even going to bother with wood. I'm not even going to bother because I might have to rip it up if there's an issue. But the other thing is, if I put the thick board there, because I had bought like 1 inch thick or 3/4 inch thick plywood that I was going to put new flooring, because I was going to cut the old floor out. But because I didn't cut the old floor out, I couldn't put the thick wood in there. If I put the thick wood in there, then the bathroom floor goes up higher than normal, and doors won't shut. You know, the cabinet doors won't shut, and there's other issues that occur. Whoa! Did you see that? Shit! That was lightning. Right outside the car. Did you hear that? Holy schmoly! This is Florida. That was lightning that struck right outside my car. Anyhow, what was I saying? Holy schmoly. Okay, so basically, I raised the floor up, and then I was trying to decide what to do, and I said, I'm going to go cheap as possible and just use what I have. So I took the, I had bought the planks, you know, the plastic wood planks, you know, the pressed wood that I had used before to go on top of the floor to give the RV kind of a finished look, you know, with the wood, nice wood, you know, the wood strips. So I just used the same one, and what I did was I just laid them on top of the plastic lids. So it's like about 1/4 of an inch, or yeah, it's about 1/4 of an inch lower than normal, it didn't line up perfectly with the other one. I could have put another board there or do another layer, which I might do. I might end up getting like vinyl, you know, and then cut it to size so that it makes a nice seal. But I was like, well, I'll put the pressed wood there because it has little gaps. And the little gaps are kind of important because if the wood underneath gets wet, the gaps will allow air to flow through and dry the wood. So you don't have just wet wood staying wet all the time. So the wood will get a little bit damp, it'll dry, and then everything should be fine. And some of you are like, what about mold? Well, you're not even gonna see it, you're not gonna breathe it, it's underneath. It's hidden behind, it's hidden on the floor. I'm not gonna worry about it. If it gets bad, I'll rip it all up and I'll do it correctly. My goal was just to get it working, getting it so that I can actually, you know, shower and everything. Right now, the toilet and everything works. The shower sort of works, but the spigot has this locking piece of plastic knob that's missing. So I'm debating if I want to order one or maybe buy a new one or just rig my own shower system. And then the plan would be, you know, we know that, well, I know because I tested it. The pump system works, but now I need to try to test it under city water. So if I can plug into actual city water, and I know people talked about getting a regulator so that the pressure isn't, you know, doesn't blow all the hose connections inside the RV. But I'm gonna possibly try it and listen for any leaks. But if it doesn't leak, then that means I'll be able to hook it up to city water. And if I can hook it up, the system up to city water, you know, with the regulator on it, so I'll make sure I get a regulator before I do it. Then potentially the RV is like pretty much functional. That's the hope. If not, I know that I can use the shower. I've been showering. I don't know if you can tell. I'm showered right now. I just showered, but I've been using the shower by using the laundry detergent, you know, the empty one, filled with water, and it has little holes like a sprinkler, and I just hold it over my head and I pour it on myself. So I go through about, if I was conserving, I could do it in under a gallon per shower, use less than 1 gallon to shower. That includes wetting down, soaping up, rinsing off. But because I've been able to haul water there from work and stuff in the parks, I've been using like about 1.5 to 2 gallons per shower. So I'm kind of wasting a little bit of water, but I don't care. It just felt so nice to have clean water, you know, on you. So I basically have been using about 1.5 to 2 gallons per shower. And when I get the actual shower head, you know, the tub has a shower head. When I get that working, there goes another lightning. This one further away. When I get that hooked up and working, then I'll be able to actually not have to use my laundry detergent bottles. I'll be able to use the RV shower system either with the water pump, you know, the 12-volt pump, or hooked up to city water, or both, you know, depending on the situation. Hooking up to city water is a little iffy because I did it originally and I didn't use the regulator because I didn't know about such things until viewers told me about it. So I might have already blown the connections in the pipes, which means I have leaks. But I might try it out anyways with the regulator. And even though I suspect I may have leaks. And then trying to figure out how to fix that, what I might do, even though it seems a little bit kind of crazy, I might try pouring some of that paint, the elastomeric paint, the rubberized paint, into the spigot on the outside of the RV for the city water hookup. And then what would happen is you pour it, it'll hopefully go, you know, flow, and then hopefully where the leak is, is easily accessible by gravity. Then it will go and kind of dry and then seal the leak. So I'm trying to seal the pipes from the inside using the elastomeric paint, which is waterproof rubber paint. Don't know if that's going to work or not, but it's an attempt to fix it without ripping up the floor and tracing the pipes and figuring out exactly where the leak is, and then doing an actual fix. Which, you know, somebody who really wanted to fix the RV and wanted to rip everything apart could do. Me, I'm looking for a solution where I pour it in there, it seals the hole, and then we're done. You know, because that elastomeric paint should be fine. You know, so that's what my goal will be. I'm going to hook it up, test it under load, and then listen for any leaks on the inside. If there is a leak, then I got to stop the water, obviously. Then I got to try to seal the leak. So I don't know if we're even going to get to that. The other thing is, I could just say we can just keep using the 12-volt pump system and have it pump the water. But see, I want the RV working like a real RV. It's an RV, okay? So if I can get it so it can hook up the city water, I'm going to get it to hook up the city water if I can make that work, because it just makes life easier. You could park it at RV park, you could park it at somebody's house and just run a hose with water up to the RV, and then you got water. Then the only thing you have to deal with is electricity, which it has. It can generate its own electricity right now. Or you can hook up power, you know, shore power, and sewage. As long as you have the ability to dump sewage, you got a tiny house on wheels. So that is my goal. I am very happy that the paint had time to somewhat dry, mostly dry, before it started raining again. And the fact that it rained while I was in it, so I could look, I think my my solution worked. And, you know, like I said, when I do have one more can of paint, because I basically went through 3 cans of the elastomeric paint. One can was kind of wasted. Well, not really, because when I crawled back up on the roof today, I could still see remnants of the paint from the first day. So not all of it washed away. Only like maybe about half of it or a third of it washed away. And then the others kind of still stayed there and had dried enough that it's made the seal. So I just put new paint on top of it, like another coating. And then I'm going to take the last can that I have left and try to cover the whole roof and make it look nice, you know, make it look white. The parts that I can get to. And then the parts that I suspect where the holes are with the leaks, I'm going to pour some more to get it even thicker to try to make the seal better, you know, because that stuff cracks and stuff. So hopefully it'll make the seal, and even though if the top layer cracks, the bottom layer will still be intact and keep water out. So, you know, some people will look at it and say, why is he not doing it properly? It's an issue of time and money. You know, to do everything properly would cost probably a couple thousand, if not $5,000 to $10,000 or more. And you're talking about ripping out the whole ceiling and the whole walls, all the walls and all the windows. So basically the only thing you would have left on that RV is the frame. Then you're putting up new walls and new ceilings. That's how you would do it properly. It could end up costing $10,000 or $20,000 depending on, you know, the materials you use and stuff. My solution was like $60. You're talking between a $6,000 fix or a $60 fix. I went with the $60 fix because I don't have $6,000 to fix it. So, you know, and same with the floor. I had bought wood for the floor. That was like $40, but I ended up, you know, I'm like, well, you know what? I could rip it up and then maybe I can't get the wood back in, or it doesn't line up. There'll be some other issue. Or I can just kludge it and make a second new floor right on top of the old one. And if it solves the problem, you know, or at least makes the problem look like it went away, so I'm not worried about it, and I don't have to deal with a wet floor, you know. That's all I care. And you know, I just want to be able to use the bathroom like a regular bathroom. Have it flushing, have it so you can shower in the shower, so that when I'm in the RV, it's like being in a house. I did have some issues that I had to resolve that I didn't cover, but maybe I'll show you guys for those of you who are interested. I know some of you are like me, computer nerds and stuff like that, but I had a mini notebook that I had bought probably about 6 or 8 years ago, and it finally died. What happened was it kept overheating, and I tried opening it up and cleaning it out and wiping it down, but it still kept coming up with graphics error and crashing. I don't know if it was overheating or if it's Windows update. You know, even though I turned it off, it keeps wanting to update. But the computer, it got to the point where it wouldn't even run anymore. So then I ripped it all apart and I was running it. You know, it was a little mini notebook. I ripped it all apart and I was running it with the lid, the keyboard and everything all ripped apart to let air circulate. And it worked. Then, suddenly it didn't. So I was stuck without a computer, and I need a computer for, you know, doing some work and stuff, and software development, because I'm getting back into software development. So I ended up I went to the flea market this weekend, and I bought a laptop, a used laptop. I was looking for used laptops. They're kind of expensive. People are selling them for kind of high, and then some of them were really far away, and so I needed a local. But I ended up at the flea market, and they had one for $100. I ended up talking the guy down to $75, and it was a Dell Inspiron, which is an older computer, and it said Windows 7 on it, and I looked on it, and it had Windows 7 installed. It seemed to work, so I bought it. But then when I got it home, you know, it didn't work. It did work, but then it would crash. So they had put Windows 7 on it, and they put a Windows 7 sticker on it, you know, a little emblem. But then I flipped it upside down. I was like, geez, it originally came with Windows Vista. So it originally had Vista on it, and then he upgraded it to Windows 7. So, didn't know if it was like a hardware or a software issue, because, you know, drivers missing and stuff could cause it to do that. So I was researching what happens with Windows 7 suddenly rebooting, and pretty much it was that. It could be drivers, or it could be, you know, chips that are bad. So I had to determine if it was like hardware or software based. And really, you crank it up and you try to use it, and then it works fine, but then suddenly it crashes, and, you know, it kept wanting to reboot. So I had to find out how to turn off the automatic reboot so that it gave me the blue screen, you know, the blue screen of death on the Windows. And I was able to see but the error, but the error didn't really help me. It just said fatal error occurred. So I was like, okay, I don't know if it's a hardware issue. I'm screwed, because my old laptop, my old notebook had hardware issues because it was old and it was overheating. This one's an even older computer. So I was fortunate enough to find a working, I had a USB stick, I think, or no, it was an external USB hard drive that I had installed Knockpix, which is a version of Linux. So I was able to get that thing to boot up on Linux. The laptop came up on Linux, and I let it run for a while, and it didn't crash. So I was like, huh. The fact that it was running Linux, same computer, mind you, and it didn't crash like it was doing under Windows 7, told me that most likely it's a software issue, you know, that had to do with one of the drivers when he upgraded it from Vista. So as of today, I downloaded and went to the Dell website. You know, obviously that model had come with Windows Vista originally, but it had gotten upgraded to Windows 7. So I downloaded Windows 7 drivers, graphics drivers, and installed it. And it seems to have fixed it, maybe. We'll see. You know, if I run that for hours and see if it reboots. But I ended up installing a video driver for it. And when I installed it, it said the video driver I was installing was older than the one that was currently installed. But I went ahead and went with the older one anyways. You know, the one I downloaded from the Dell website. I went ahead and installed that anyways. And booted up the computer and ran it and was playing World of Warcraft on it. And it didn't crash, but I wasn't on it for hours. So we'll see what happens later with that. But I also went to a thrift store, and they had computers, 2 computers, big ass, huge tower computers for sale for $35 each. And the computers included keyboard and monitor, but no mouse. And they were Dell Precisions. The computer model was a Dell Precision, and I Googled the specs on it, and it looked like it had decent specs, so I was hoping they didn't do anything weird to it, but it turns out that they did. But anyhow, I ended up buying, I was going to buy one, but then I was like, you know, trying to talk the guy into selling both for $60, just in case I needed parts, you know, and even if I didn't need parts, I would get one for my kid, my son, so he could have a computer to play with and mess with. So I ended up buying both of them. He wouldn't lower the price, but I bought both of them for basically $70. So I ended up with 2 desktop computers. And then, surprise and surprise, when I got it home and tried to plug it in and get it working, it didn't work. Neither computer worked. Well, one booted, sort of, but then it didn't want to work. It kept crashing and doing some other weird stuff. And they had Windows XP on it. That's how old this stuff was. It booted up into Windows XP, and then it would crash. And then I went to look at the specifications on it, and I was like, dang, they stripped it down. So instead of having a 320 gigabyte hard drive on it, it had like an 80 gigabyte drive. And maybe I'm getting the specs mixed up between that and the laptop. But anyhow, it only had an 80 gigabyte hard drive on it, each of them. But it only had, one machine had 2 megabytes of RAM, and the other one only had 1 megabyte of RAM. Now, under Windows XP, that may be okay, but, you know, games and stuff like World of Warcraft would run really badly on it. So, long story short, for those of you wanting to restore old computers like that, because, you know, we've forgotten how you have to install different drivers and everything. Alright. So, had forgotten that you have to install drivers. I was able to get it to boot and work, and figured out why it wasn't working right. It turns out that they had, I guess the machines might have belonged to a company. Their tech person wiped it out completely. And I think he pulled out extra memory and just had enough memory left in there to let it run. So one had 1 megabyte RAM, one had 2. They only came with 80 gigabyte hard drive, but they just installed Windows XP on it. You know, just like a new fresh install to make sure the hard drive was wiped out. And the drivers on it were the generic Windows XP drivers. And you're like, what does that mean? It means that the VGA drivers, it's just the generic Windows one, which means it wouldn't work under DirectX. And it wouldn't work under, like, I tried to start up World of Warcraft on it, and it said, no suitable display device. I was like, well, that means I have to download. It got complicated. So maybe I'll do an episode about that. All the stuff you forget that you had to deal with in the days of Windows XP, and beyond. Yeah, prior to that. So I had to go back to a really old skill set from like 20 years ago when I was a network administrator. Hey, Elizabeth, good to see you on here. Daniel says, if I put that sealant can in your water system, it can ruin your pump and you won't be able to drink your water. It will be toxic. I don't really drink the water from the RV. I use bottled water. I don't drink the RV water. The RV water is used for like dishes, washing things. Like when I cook, I use bottled water. I don't really use that water from the RV. I do bleach it and stuff, but I don't. I guess you could drink it if you trust it, but I don't. And if I do the sealant, it's just to make sure that it doesn't leak and spray everywhere. And I'd be showering in it and stuff. And, I guess supposedly you could get some toxicity from the elastomeric paint. But I don't know. It's like rubber, it's rubberized. It's like a rubber hose or something. So I think it'll be okay. I'm not too worried about it because it's not like I want to be soaking in it all day long. But the other thing about it is I'm hoping I don't even have to do that. I'm hoping that when I get the regulator and put the regulator onto the hose and hook it up to city water, that it doesn't squirt everywhere. And if it squirts everywhere, like I said, I may try to fix it, or I might just say, we'll try the 12-volt system, the 12-volt pump. And if the 12-volt pump works, then it's kind of a pain in the butt, but what it means is I'd have to take city water, fill up the RV tank, and then use it off the RV tank instead of directly hooking up city water. Unless I wire my own city water, pipe my own. Hey, Maddie, how's it going? You got to glue your teeth. Hey, English says, I got to glue my teeth. I lost my tooth. I don't know where it went. But the other issue is I'm trying to have this one, which got pushed. I'm trying to have it pulled out. They wouldn't pull it out because I don't have dental coverage. I had to go through like the county. It's kind of like, it's not really the health department, but they have a service that you can sign up for where they charge you on a sliding scale, how much you can afford to pay. But they wouldn't pull it out because they said it wasn't like an emergency or something. So I'm going to talk to them again and see if they'll pull it out. So once they pull that out, then I can try to deal with I'll just deal with no teeth. I'm at the point of saying, screw it. So eventually I may get a bridge or something, but that's not a priority. I know a lot of people say, well, your teeth is all messed up and whatnot. It's not a priority right now. There's a lot more pressing stuff, like just trying to stay alive, dealing with my teeth, my appearance and stuff like that. As long as I look okay at work. And the other issue is even with work, one of the good things about, well, somebody corrected me. They said it's COVID, not Corvid. But we have to wear masks at work. So, I look fine. I look fine at work because I wear the mask all day long when I work anyway. So that's the good thing about COVID is that people with bad teeth or missing teeth and stuff can look normal. As normal as everybody else that's wearing a mask. So I wear the mask at work. It's not too bad. And I will eventually get this fixed. What I'm going to do is try to have this one pulled because it's sideways, and then I'll have a gap there. And then I'll have to look at getting a bridge made. So that way, at least, I can smile and don't have to walk around with like a big, huge missing tooth gap. But that's the reality. And I know it looks bad, okay, being on YouTube with the missing teeth and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. This channel is about reality. This channel is about what it's like and, the stuff I'm having to deal with on a daily basis. And fixing my teeth right now is not a priority. Fixing my teeth is at the bottom of the list, okay? At the top of the list is trying to secure a place to stay, to survive. As they've gone in, the government has gone into lockdown and stuff. The resources that were available for van dwellers or urban stealth van dwellers has been removed. Like, even if you sign up for Planet Fitness, you can't shower there. They've closed the showers. So, and I don't even know if the gym's still open. They might have closed it because once they opened it up, people were getting sick, more sick. People are contaminating each other. So I've been fortunate because, I have the RV. See all these jugs of water? Like, I'll fill it up from work. So 2 jugs is a shower for me each day. And then I also have access to a freezer, so I can actually freeze a jug of water and take it, and it'll last a day in the RV to keep food cold. It won't keep everything cold, but it'll keep like sodas and water so that I can have cold drink while I'm there in the RV chilling. But the RV's been like a godsend, because I am able to shower in the RV every day. So I maintain, I shave. I didn't shave today, but I'm able to maintain my appearance somewhat for work, and I don't smell. I don't look homeless. The RV also has a working kitchen. It's got limited power, not enough power to fully run the refrigerator. Although I think if I were to get the refrigerator propane system working, it could fully run off propane and 12 volts. So I'm looking into that. I got to figure out how to get it, the LP gas refilled because it's out or low. But I did test it one day and it did work, and I was like, wow. So I could conceivably run the refrigerator off liquid propane gas as long as I had access to LPG. Then the refrigerator and freezer would work off grid. Power wise, when it's sunny, I have enough electricity that I can run the TVs, I can run all these fans. I can run the air conditioner, but really I have a window air conditioner, and I think I might have shown you it working and stuff, but it won't run the whole day because my battery bank is only, I think I have about 500 amp hours. 500 amp hours means 250 is usable. So 250 amp hours, if you're running a window air conditioning unit, it's not enough. And even though I have 1,000 watts, it doesn't generate a full 1,000 watts. There's complications, which we'll talk about later when we deal with the reality of how many wattage you have and trying to convert it so it actually becomes usable. I have about 1,000 watts, but I think I'm only getting the equivalent of about 400 or 500 watts of power out of it. And the other issue is sun, like it's raining now. So when it's really sunny, I can actually run the air conditioning and sit in it, but I have to shut it off after a couple hours. Otherwise, the batteries would drain completely down. So, or I run it for like, 20, 30 minutes and shut it off for 10, 15 minutes and then turn it back on. But even then I'm going negative because battery's not charging up fast enough. You really need, if you want to be off grid, running air conditioning off grid or maybe a refrigerator off grid, you probably need at least 2,000 watts and probably 2,000 amp hours of power. I think you would need a minimum, somebody's like, well, you could do it probably with 12 or 1,500 watts. But I'm like, if you really wanted to live off grid and have power to run a small little air conditioning, window AC, and run lights and have the ability to charge a battery bank, you probably need 2,000 watts of solar panels and probably 2,000 amp hours of batteries with at least 1,000 amp hours usable. That's my guess. It would have to be tested, but that's based on my experience with the RV, with 500 amp hours and roughly about 500-600 watts of power available. I'm able to run the stuff, just not fully. But I am able to do this. If I go into the RV and it is sunny outside, I can actually have about 5 or 6 fans, 12-volt fans running. I also bought a 120-volt fan, one of those little window units with the 2 blowers, so that can mount into the RV and circulate air. It'll draw like a huge amount of air in. So I'm able to run that fully when it's sunny, and it's actually cool where I'm sitting because I have fans blowing at me and the air is actually being circulated. So you got, the RV is not like acting like an oven. It's almost the same temperature inside the RV as outside because of the airflow. But because air is moving, it feels even cooler in the RV than outside. And you have shade. And now that I'm painting the roof with the elastomeric paint, even though it was already white before, it'll be a brighter white, it should reflect more heat away from the RV. So it may start to make the RV feel cooler. So there's going to be some side effects, side benefits. So, you know, I'll share with you those experiences for those of you who are looking to do something like that. And, you know, basically the RV is almost done. It just needs finishing touches to make it, you know, clean looking. And basically I'm going to be painting it. I'm going to fix some of the broken panels, you know, like door panels and things like that, and just trying to make it look like a home. And that way I will have a home to use, and I'll plan on using the RV as a house. That's the plan. Anyhow, it is getting late. I'm going to scroll through and just look. Basically, yeah, I'm gonna show you guys how I did the stuff, because it's, you know, I know there's like a lot of channels on YouTube that show you how they do it and stuff, but they tend to spend a lot of money. These people have money, you know. I don't know where they get their money from. You know, well, I know where they get their money from. They have a good job, or they have parents who have money that are paying for their way. You know, if they're young people, or companies are sponsoring them and stuff. But basically, a lot of the channels have systems that are built that are actually very nice systems. But they cost a lot. They could end up costing $6,000 to $10,000, $20,000 for an electrical system. I'm like, well, you can afford that. You could probably afford to buy a nice RV already done. You don't need to build it yourself. My systems tend to be very basic, very low end. Like one of the things I see people do that, like, I guess if they can afford it, they will buy the AGM, lithium, not AGM, but lithium ion batteries. You know, the power banks. They'll buy a 100-watt lithium ion battery. It's like 150 watts. I mean, amp hours. 150 amp hour battery for $1,000. $1,000 for 100 to 150 amp hours. They say, well, this battery is special because unlike lead acid, you can drain that battery all the way down. So you have like your full 100 amp hours of usage. The problem is this: $1,000 for 100 amp hours. If I had $1,000, I would buy 10 lead acid batteries and have 10,000 amp hours that can drain down to halfway, which means I have 500 amp hours. See the difference? They would spend $1,000 to get 100 usable amp hours. For me, $1,000 would get me 500 usable amp hours. But my battery system would take up more space and becomes a little bit more complicated and heavier. So it depends on what you're trying to do, you know, and what your budget is. My RV right now has just cheapo lead acid RV batteries. Now, I may put 1 or 2 more batteries there just to give myself a little extra power, you know, just for like really bad sunny days. I mean, bad rainy days like this where it's raining and dark. So the system can charge off the alternator just like Little Blue. So on rainy days, you can charge the battery by running the engine. And if you notice the battery bank running low at night, you can start the engine up and let it run and charge it. So that's the good thing about having worked on the van and hooking up the electrical system in the van. able to make the RV do the same thing, but with a larger battery bank and able to power more things. Like the battery banks I have in the RV is enough to run the microwave. I can cook food in the microwave. I can watch TV. I can run a whole bunch of fans, so it's like really cool in there. I have water pump so that I can, have water flowing from a faucet like a house, So it's a lot, it's just a lot more comfortable living in an RV than it is living in a van. Even if you deck out this little van here, there's just a lot more room. Like in my shower, I'm able to stand up. I'm able to stand up and shower, even though I built a little bench so I can sit down and shower. Hey, Kira, good to see you on here. Hello, Sheila. Yeah, see, AA Angry says, Foresty Forest has a new vid up today. He has a girlfriend. His girlfriend is buying a Battleborn 100 amp hour. It is $1,000, $1,000 for 100 amp hours. They can afford it. If space was an issue and you had the money, it's better to get the lithium ions like the Battleborn. But for $1,000 for me, I would rather buy 10 cheap batteries, RV batteries. It takes up more space and weighs more, but if you're in an RV, it may not be an issue. And you get 500 amp hours. So I have 5 times more capacity than they do. I don't know how long it lasts. We don't know. They're saying, well, their shit lasts like 5 years or something. I don't know. I don't know how long the RV batteries would last. 2 years, maybe 3 years, if you're lucky. Let's say they last 2 years. That means you got to replace it 3 times. So you could end up spending basically $3,000, but you have more in the same length of time that they kept theirs, but you have 5 times more electrical storage capacity. For me, having the ability to do something cheaply, even though it's not like state of the art or new or whatever, is more important than having like a Battleborn $1,000 battery with only 100 amp hours. I would rather have cheap Walmart RV batteries for 500 amp hours and be able to power my microwave, my TV, the fans and all that. It's just 5 times 500% more powerful. But space, carrying 10 batteries is heavy and a lot of space, whereas one battery is less, it takes less space. So in a van it might be more important, but in an RV definitely I would go with the cheaper. I'm just gonna scroll through here and try to address some stuff. Mo Bang says, didn't you check the weather ahead of time? Yeah, I always check the weather before I do the roof and stuff, but this is Florida. There's always a chance of rain, but with the luck, And what had happened was I looked at the sky. There was no clouds, or very few clouds, and I did it right after work. So it was kind of early. Like I started, I think at about like 11 a.m. And then it started raining at like about like 3 or 4. So, I had a couple hours. I was counting on it drying before it rained. I was debating if I was going to do it or not, but then, I was like, I need to do it before it rains, and I need to do it before the hurricane hits. Hurricane season is starting up here in Florida. So we got COVID going on, and we got hurricanes. I need to have that RV fully functional. Do you remember last year when I had to take that RV out and it didn't run and there were issues? It was terrible. It sucked. That can happen again this year. I'm a little bit better prepared this year because the RV it runs better. Even though it's not fully running, it still may have transmission issues. That is a big scare for me right now. I could probably try to get a transmission fixed again for like another $2,000 or $3,000, but we could run out into the same situation as before. I don't know if it's really worth it. It might be worth it if I wanted to take the RV and travel around in it, but I'm not going to bother sinking $2,000 into fixing it. I just want to fix it to be usable and then park it somewhere to live in it, you know, not drive around country, because it's got so many problems being old that if you fixed one thing and then drove it around the country, you could end up having a lot of other issues. But if you fixed it up so you could park it somewhere, you have a tiny little house that has the ability to generate its own electricity. And if I get it done the way I want it done, it may even have a water catchment system so I can catch some rainwater and use the rainwater for like showering, you know, and stuff like that. So those are things that I may be adding. And of course, it's going to be cheap the way I do it. You know, I don't want to spend a lot of money. I want to just make it simple. I think a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, I was fortunate when I had access to the hut. Remember the hut and the yurts that I built out in the woods? I learned a lot of skills. So having the RV is like a million times better because it's on wheels. It has the ability to generate electricity. It even has a generator. It's got so many different power sources. It's got gasoline. It's got LP. It's got, what do I use? The butane for cooking. It also has solar, and it has the ability to hook into shore. The RV is just so versatile. And, you know, with the leaks being fixed and everything, it's like basically a yurt or a house on wheels, a little tiny hut on wheels. That's just a lot more comfortable. Let's see. Well, Bang says they sell plastic panels that you can use to fix the bathroom wall quickly and easily. You have to open up that bathroom wall to see where the leak came from. I know you would, Timothy. I know Timothy would. If he was fixing the RV, he would rip it all apart and do it right. I'm not gonna rip it apart. I'm just gonna I'm gonna try this fix right now and see how it does. The water could have been just coming from when you shower, it splatters and it hits the edge of the tub and could be spilling out. That's where I think it could be happening. I'm not sure where the water was coming from, but we're gonna find out once I start really using the shower. And if it becomes an issue, you know, then I won't be able to use that shower like I want to. But my hope is to use the shower like a real shower. Otherwise, I'm stuck with continuing to do what I'm doing, which is getting this thing, filling it with water, putting it into my little handheld shower sprinkler thingy, and using that. Brimstone Fondue says, dude, it's Florida and it's summer. It rains every day. You can't be surprised by this. I'm not. The idea was to try to rush it and get it done before, you know, it rained, because it usually rains in the afternoon, like about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I figured, you know, if I started at noon, I had like 3 hours for the paint to dry, which it did. So I think it's okay. Tomorrow after work, I'll climb up there and assess the damage. But I suspect that it was pretty dry. I just wish it had like 5 or 6 hours to dry. But the weather here, we're in the rainy season and we're getting ready to hit hurricane season. So you either do it or you don't. You can try to wait for the perfect day, and then if you don't ever have that perfect day, then you never fixed it. And then a hurricane comes, now you're in serious shit, you know? So I'm trying to seal it as best as I can, as quick as I can, and as cheap as I can. So I think fixing the roof for $60 isn't too bad, but it may even fix more than the roof. And so I spent $60 to fix the roof. I'm probably gonna spend another $20 to $40 to paint the inside. So $100, the RV's done. Although I have to buy some new panels because the panels soaked through from the leaking roof. So I'm gonna cut out some panels and replace those panels. So I think all in all, when I finish the RV, it should be under $200 to fix everything and make it look nice. Just scrolling through here. Cali Venture says, in about 2 years after I retire, I want to buy something and have you redo it for me, Dinoy. Watch these videos. or watch more bang for your bucks. I might actually try to redo this van. I don't know. I go back and forth on whether or not I want to spend money on it or not. These were thrown out from work. These are curtain rods. So this curtain rod was one that threw out from work, but I ended up breaking it. So I'm just gonna use curtain rods again and just do a quick fix so that this doesn't collapse. You know, see how this is collapsed down so it goes up again. So that'll take me only a few minutes to do. But I was thinking of actually putting up a wall partition, but then I go back and forth on it. Because if you put up a wall partition, you get a little bit more stability on the curtain rod and stuff. It doesn't keep falling down. And you get, the back becomes more like privacy. You get like a little house like back there, a little room. But you lose the ability to have air conditioning flow through. Whereas like right now, when I put this, the front, I put sunshade up and I leave this thing open, I can run the air conditioning in the car and it blows through the front to the back, and the back also has AC vents too. So I can run air conditioning with the car without having to put in a 120 volt AC system. So if it gets really hot, all I have to do is start the car up and you know, let the AC run. Just scrolling through everybody's comments here. And Daniel says, you know, you can only do what you can afford to. Nobody can ask more of that of you. So Daniel understands the situation. You know, you can't, I know a lot of people say you can do this, you can do that. You can do that because you have the resources. Like, if I had a house or land or something where I could park and not have to deal with the police coming and saying, you can't do this here or whatever, and I had a house to live in or whatever, you know, while I was working on something, I could rip apart the roof, the walls, and do it correctly. And you need the money and the tools and stuff, and of course the skill set. But having to do it while you're living in it, it's a little bit more difficult. Not only that, where you do it becomes an issue. You can't just park somewhere. Like, you can't just go to a park and start painting, okay? Even doing the RV roof, I can't go to even like a RV park and just start painting. They'll kick me out. You know, they have rules. You can't paint. So I'm able to paint right now because I'm taking advantage of the ability to paint at the storage. The guy at the storage knows I'm working on the RV, and I do a little bit of cutting as long as I'm not making a huge mess. I'm not, you know, I'm not cutting every day. I'm not making a lot of noise. I'm not having sawdust everywhere. Just a couple little minor cuts on some wood, some beams, and maybe I'll cut some panels for the roof, or I might even have it pre-cut, you know, before I take it to the RV. But painting the roof wasn't too much of it, you know. They're letting me. So you got to work within the confines of the rules and the ability and the location, what you're able to do. Like right now, I could cut and put up a panel on this if I really wanted to, but I'm not sure I want to spend $20, $30. This is free. You know, this is from work. They threw it out, so it doesn't cost anything. And it may not look the best or whatever, but it's functional. It'll be nice to have this thing straightened out again so it sits up instead of down, because the fan sits on here. But I actually have the ability to run 3 fans all night, which is really nice, because if you're in Florida right now, you know what I'm talking about. It is hot and humid here. So having 3 fans blowing at me all night is like really, really nice. It's like air conditioning. Cali Venture said, better be prepared to know they are saying this hurricane season is going to be bad. I'm pretty sure it's going to be really bad. Even if it wasn't going to be really bad, it's always bad in Florida. Not quite sure what's going to happen, but if there's an evacuation, my plan would probably be to try to take the RV inland. You know, that's why I'm doing all the prep that I'm doing right now. If I leave the RV beachside, near where I am right now, which is close to the beach side, the winds will hit from the sides and be very powerful and probably rip that RV apart. RV will not stand winds that are like super strong. Hurricane winds will blow an RV to smithereens. So whether it's new or old, it'll probably be blown apart. So my experience from last year, remember the first year we got the RV? In Florida, even if you parked in an RV park, when a hurricane hits, they can kick you out. So if they kick me out, I'm pretty much stuck with the RV, and my goal will be to go inland. Don't know where yet, but to go inland so that when the hurricane hits, the wind has, weakened because it's traveled over land and the hurricane becomes weaker. But the good thing about the RV is, as long as it doesn't die on the road, okay? The good thing about the RV is it's got the ability to hold a lot of water. I think it's like, I don't know how many gallons it holds, but something like maybe, I think it holds 40 or 50 gallons of water. So I have the ability to have water, have food, have the ability to cook food, have the ability to take a bathroom with me, to use a bathroom. Basically, in a hurricane situation, a survival situation, the RV is better than what a lot of people have, even the people on the beach side. The people on the beach side, if you saw my walking and talking head episodes where I walked around the beach and showed you all that, those people have to evacuate. So even those people in those fancy houses and stuff, remember how we were on the beach side looking for Jeannie? Those people have nice houses on the beach and condos, but during a hurricane, they often have mandatory evacuation because that area is expected to go underwater. So even though those people have money and stuff, when they have to evacuate, they try to go inland to like Orlando or whatever to try to get hotel rooms if they can get in. But if they can't, they're stuck staying at a school or something. And with this whole COVID thing, the whole coronavirus thing, I don't even know how this is going to work out, because shelters, by their nature, are packed with people. So you're in a situation where you're going to have people packed in and it's already under an emergency. I don't know how you want to think about it. The only thing I can think of is I got to get the RV done so that if worst comes to worst and they do an evacuation, I will take the RV and try to go inland and maybe go north or south away from the hurricane. And it has running issues. It still slips, but it runs better than it did the first time I got it, and it has more capabilities, more power, and other stuff like that. So if I can keep it away from the winds, I should be okay, and I have the ability to live in it. So it's better than before. A. Anger says, why I am here. I am a father with wife and kids and live in the big city. Van dwelling is a dream, one I will never live. That is fine, but the romanticism of the life I appreciate. A. Angry, you can do this on the weekend. And if you have kids, they might actually enjoy camping. I don't know if the wife would. It depends on, your wife. But I started doing this stuff when my kids were young. Like, my daughter was probably 5 years old, 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years old. Actually, I started before I had my son. So I started when my daughter was like 2 years old. And it wasn't so much to live in a van as it was to survive in the event of shit hit the fan, which is what's happening right now. Okay. So what had happened back then was, like, I think the year 2000, 2003, the United States had a power outage. Remember that? They had a power main go out, I think in Ohio or something, and it knocked out like 1/3 of the United States had no electricity. So I started looking into generating electricity using inverter and a car, and because we lived in Florida, I was able to utilize that during hurricane season because we always lost power here. When a hurricane came through, we would lose power, and I would use an inverter and run an extension cord from my car into the house. And it wasn't enough to power the refrigerator or anything, but it was enough to power a light, a fluorescent light, which didn't take a lot of energy, and I could also run a TV. So you're like, why would you do that? Why is that important to you? You have little kids, they kind of freak out, they get scared. Having the ability to have light at night makes it seem more normal, and then you could watch a DVD player, you know, a little DVD player with a movie, Elmo or something. So it was really important for me to have the capacity to run lights and movies and stuff like that, even in an emergency, because I wanted my daughter not to freak out and be scared. And there was so much electricity being generated, you know, that I could run 3 or 4 lights. So it was kind of weird because that during that hurricane season, we had like Floyd and all those other hurricanes that came through here. The neighborhood was dark, but my house, if you walk down the street, all the lights were on. Well, not all the lights were on, but a lot of you could see the lights on in various windows because I had 3 fluorescent light bulbs. They only took, I think each bulb took 12 or 24 watts. It put out an output of 200 watts, but, you know, the equivalent of 200 watts of light, but it only costs like 10 or 12 or 24 watts per light. And I was able to run them all off a battery. What I did was, at that time, I didn't even use a RV battery. I had a car battery, an old car battery. Actually, I bought a new car battery and I used it. And I had an inverter hooked up to it. And it was a battery pack that I used to run the lights. And then to charge up the system, I would take it out to my car and hook it up with jumper cables to the car and charge it for like 15, 20 minutes. Let the car idle and charge the battery up. So that light system made our house have electricity and stuff during a power outage that lasted more than 2 weeks. I might show people that, even though I think most people know, and there's channels that are dedicated to it. But the idea is to prepare beforehand, because if you're trying to do it afterwards, it's hard. So I would suggest right now, if you're in Florida or any of the other hurricane zones, make sure at a minimum that you buy a power inverter. A power inverter can be bought in automotive stores and like at Walmart in the automotive department. And what it does is it allows you to hook up a 12-volt car battery, and it generates 120 volts. And if you've been watching this channel, then you know that's how we cook food and how we run the TV and everything in here pretty much. But at a minimum, you need a power inverter. If you want to be able to cook food in it, you need at least 300 watts to run the rice cooker. I recommend getting 400 or more. If you're planning on doing a lot more, I think the 750 watt one is a good size. 750 watts will allow you to run upwards of 2 rice cookers. And then if you want to build a portable battery pack, you know, you could buy an RV battery for about $85. So probably about $120 total in parts. And you have a portable battery pack that you can charge by by hooking it up with jumper cables to your car. And you can carry it into your house. And it won't run your refrigerator or anything, but it'll run TV and lights. Well, a small little, you know, or a little notebook laptop or something like that. And then you just got to charge it every day. Now, as far as cooking food, you might be better off using butane or propane systems. But I suggest getting all this stuff ready right now, if any of it's even available. Maybe we'll do a trip through Walmart or something just to look and see what the supplies look like. Because they haven't officially started announcing hurricanes yet. People kind of wait until the last minute, and then they panic. You know, then there's nothing available. Now would be the time to get the stuff. Get a generator, which I already have in the RV. Get butane or propane cooking systems and canisters to cook with, because you might not have electricity. Get water, maybe some water filters, you know, if you have to drink dirty water. But you can boil the water also, so make sure you have the ability to make fire. But that's why the butane stove or the propane stoves and stuff. So if you have an RV, you're already set. but this is the season, and this is the time to prep right now, because I have a drink here, my throat. This is the time to get it before everybody else does. Of course, when I go to look in there, it might all be gone, but I already have everything, so I'm good. Kelly Ventures, I hear you, and you're trying to get my wife on board for a trip across the U.S. when I retire. She's refusing, still unsure about what vehicle to invest in. I would say this. If you know that this is something you love, and you have the funds, you can get the best vehicle you can get. If it's something that you just think you might enjoy, I wouldn't spend too much money on it. I'd buy like a used vehicle and then deck it out, make it a weekender. Little Blue can be converted to a regular vehicle. Maybe I'll do another vehicle or do Little Blue again, just to show you how it can be converted and stuff. But you could have a regular vehicle that can be driven around, as a beater vehicle. Like Little Blue, I bought for like $700 or $800. You could spend less than $1,000 on a vehicle, and then $300 to have it fully rigged with the inverter and everything. So you're talking about under $1,200, you could have a camper. And not just a camper, you could live in it in an emergency. So, to sell the idea to your wife or whatever, I wouldn't even sell the idea. It's always good to have a backup plan when shit hits the fan. Having a vehicle that if you had to take off in and live in, not like permanently, but sleep in and stuff, while you're trying to run away from like a hurricane or some other disaster, is not a bad idea, especially in the world that we live in right now with coronavirus and all the riots and all the craziness. Having your vehicle so that you can hop into it and say, get the heck out of Dodge. Like if something went bad right now, my van, I can just get gas up and get the heck out of here. I have the ability to cook food. I have the ability to make things cold. I have the ability to sleep in it. It's ready to go. And you're like, well, you live in it. Well, I had a vehicle like this even when I didn't live in a van. What had happened was I had bought a minivan because I became a daddy. I think all the guys can relate to me on this. When I was a young guy, I would spend my money on stuff like a nice little sports car and clothes and stuff. And I said, I will never drive a van or a minivan or whatever. And then when I became a daddy and the reality sank in, okay, I did have a little sports car and my wife drove the minivan, okay? But then when we went on a trip, like cross-country trip, we took the van. It was just more comfortable for everybody to be in it. And that's when it started for me. That was 20 years ago. Probably about 18, 20 years ago was when I first lived in a van, if you want to call it that. But I took the family from Florida all the way out to California and back. And what I did was we had a Caravan. I think it was a 1995 Dodge Caravan. And I converted it for travel. And what it did was I took the middle seats out and I put in a console, just like Little Blue. Little Blue's based on that same design from 20 years ago. I made a console at the front and it had a microwave. So when we had shore power, you could cook stuff with the microwave. And then it had a little display thingy that I put a laptop with a TV, and I had digital movies and stuff that you could watch on the laptop. So the little kids could watch that. And at the time, everything ran off 120 volts. So I just had a inverter that plugged into the cigarette lighter and ran the stuff while I was driving. That's how simple it was. And then I had, for food and stuff, I just had a ice chest, one of those coolers, and just carried a bag of ice in it and bought food. And we would take stuff that we could cook, like we would stay in a hotel room and they had microwaves there, so you could just microwave the food to save money. But I could microwave in the car. And then I decided to try using a battery, and that's when I learned, cooking food, making electricity for food takes a lot of energy. If you have a car battery, that's how I started. I had a car battery, and I used a 2,000 watt inverter. I bought a 2000 watt inverter to run a 800 watt, 700 watt microwave. It will only run that microwave for a total of about 7 to 10 minutes. And then the battery's dead. So that's how much electricity we actually use up. You know, when we cook food and stuff, you don't think about it when you plug into a wall socket and stuff. But if you happen to generate the electricity, that's when you realize, holy schmoly, cooking microwave dinner, which takes 3 to 5 minutes, you can only cook one meal on a battery. Then you're totally drained. And as Timothy's finding out, you know, like with his battery system, if it takes you 10 hours to charge it back up, that's not really that useful. You got to have a system that can charge up within minutes. And that's why charging up with an alternator on a car, on an RV battery, I can charge my whole system back up in about 10 or 15 minutes to be usable again. And if I'm cooking food and I'm charging the battery back up as I'm doing it, you know, that's the best way to do it, because then the alternator in the vehicle is what's generating electricity. But these are things you learn over time. And AA Angry and stuff, the other people that were telling me, you know, like the daddies with the kids and stuff, you can get an SUV, you can get a van, you can get a truck, and begin with the first thing you want is an inverter. You don't even need a house battery, but you have a small little inverter, and then you can hook up a laptop while you drive, make a little bed for sleeping, take it camping, and then build on from that. And then when you take road trips, you know, the more comfortable you make it, the more the family starts to see, hey, this is really cool. This is really cool. And the other thing is, even if the family doesn't get into it, you know, I don't know if you have the ability. I know that for me, when I was, you know, married and with my family and stuff when we were young, and this was all starting out, I could take off for one day or something for a weekend by myself every once in a while if I worked it out with my wife, and go camping. So you could take it fishing, and you take your portable little house out there, you know, to go fishing or, you know, hiking or whatever. So it's kind of nice to do. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I wish I could do this full time and stuff, but really you want to get into it and do it like weekender, to make sure that you can actually deal with it, because going to the bathroom is an issue, trying to stay hot, trying to stay cold, trying to stay, all these things come up as you doing it, and you go, holy schmoly, this sucks. I had a viewer tell me they tried it. They tried to live in a van and they couldn't last. They couldn't do it. It was too much. Because it is difficult. It's a lot harder than people think. And even, especially now with the lockdown, because it's hard to park anywhere. You know, they come up and they hassle you. They think you're trying to do something bad. So it's even more difficult right now. But I would say if you have a dream, go for it. Do it. Don't spend a lot of money. Don't piss off your wife. But, you know, make the vehicle so that, like Timothy's build, you could take it back down and it becomes a regular vehicle. Little Blue can be converted back to a regular vehicle. So don't do anything permanent, but do it. And you have the benefit of YouTube. You got this channel, which shows you how to do it cheaply. You got other channels that if you got more money, you can go really fancy and get the high-end stuff. My advice, though, on a personal front, okay, building the van and stuff is fun. It's an adventure. It allows you to be creative, and it allows you to really test yourself to see if you can actually do it and survive and do this kind of thing. Don't waste a lot of money on it. What I mean is this: the experience itself is more important than the money and all the stuff that you're putting into it. I know a lot of people will spend a lot of money on it, and then they don't really enjoy it, you know? The whole idea of being able to live in your vehicle isn't so much to live in the vehicle, but to have it available so that, let's say I wanted to go, like right now, I can't do it right now because I'm working. I'd get fired. But if I wasn't working or whatever, I could say, you know, I'm going to go to New York. As long as they don't have all the, well, this is a bad time example, but as long as they don't have all the curfews and all the lockdowns and stuff. But you could hop in your vehicle and go. And you can sleep, pull over somewhere and sleep in it. If I wanted hot coffee, I could make coffee right now in my vehicle. I could even cook a hamburger if I wanted to. You've seen me cook steaks. You've seen me cook ribs. I can cook rice in here if I want to. So having that just gives me a little bit more freedom, okay? And, you know, for me, this isn't by choice, but it's not a bad thing to be able to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? And even before, when I had a house and stuff, having that van rigged up like that, we could take it on the trip. I even went crazy. I did some stupid stuff. I took a tent, like they have those dome family tents that hold like 8 or 16 people. And I chopped it up and merged it into the van. So the van, the back of the van, I had a Pontiac. This was a Pontiac. Was it Pontiac Transport? Yeah, Pontiac Transport. The back opened up and the tent came out, and it had an extended bed that I pulled out there. It was so funky, but it took like 15-20 minutes to set up, and I thought that was acceptable. But now that I live in a van and have lived in a van, 15 or 20 minutes is too much time. And also having that tent sticking out like that, and it's just not practical. Not practical. So I would prefer a system like this that's just ready to roll. Like I can hop in the back and be asleep in a few minutes. The bed's already made, you know. Kelly says, I could never do what you do, you know. I love your setup. Well, you could do it if you wanted to, and you might even be able to do it better because you can avoid the mistakes that I made. You know, if you watch this channel from the very start, you saw some of the issues we had, like using I had a portable jump starter that I used as the main house battery. That's what I used. It turns out that thing only has 35 amp hours. So 35 amp hours means it only has about 12 to 14, well, about 15 or 16 amp hours of usable power in it before it wouldn't work anymore. So it didn't really, it worked fine for running one fan all night. But if you tried to run 2 fans, you ran into issues. Also, if you cooked food on it, then ran a fan, that's when I was killing the batteries. I didn't know all that back then, but I know now. I'm like, it was a 35 amp hour battery. Let's say 30 amp hours. That means I had 15 usable amp hours. Running a fan at 1 amp is overnight is 10 amps. That only leaves me 5 amps spare. Which, you know, if I cooked the rice, and even though I was charging the system up, battery didn't get fully charged back up. And that's when I was killing that portable battery pack. I would recommend, if you're going to do it, get an RV battery. They sell them at Walmart for about $65 or $85, a cheap little one. That will give you 100 amp, it's like 115 amp hour battery, but roughly you have 50 amp hours. So that's already much more usable than the little jump starter. Kira says, it's always difficult to make repairs and renovations when you don't have a permanent place. I watched the guy strip out his van at a local park, and what a mess he made. He was a tourist from France. Yeah, pretty much. If you don't have the ability to, like, you're trying to live in it and stuff, it's like people don't really understand that it's a lot harder, because you can't just go somewhere and just dump the stuff. Like, I had the compound where I was doing that, but then the police could show up. They think that you're throwing trash out, that you're trashing the place, you know. And also it could rain while you're working on it, all sorts of issues. And if you're out in the middle of the woods, power may be an issue. Now, I don't have as much of the issue now because I have 2 battery, you know, I have a 200 amp hours, and I have solar panels, and I have the system's already rigged now, so it's not as bad. So like if somebody were needing help and to build their van out or whatever, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, it's not as bad because my vehicle can make electricity. But if you had no ability to make electricity and you're trying to do it yourself, it gets complicated. It was like when I was trying to build out into the woods in the hut, it was complicated. I had to make my battery pack, and I had to charge it, and sometimes it's only usable for 15 minutes and then, there was no power left. Stuff like that that you encounter as you're doing it. But you don't think about it until you're having to deal with it. See, Maddie Van Halen says, now that I'm back at work, I pretty much live here. There's a refrigerator in the office and there's a bathroom here. I park my van next to the office and sleep in it overnight. Yeah, that's the key, is like recognizing resources that are available and utilizing them. I think that you're being pretty smart, Matt, to do that. I can't sleep overnight where I work and stuff, but I have the refrigerator with the freezer, so I can freeze water to take. I also have bathrooms, so I've gotten my schedule, so like, I wake up, go to the bathroom when I get to work and stuff. So you have a routine that you establish and you use what you have there. At work, I have a microwave, so I buy food and I freeze it at work, and then I eat it by heating it up at work. The only thing I have to eat in the van is like dinner, and on the weekends. So sometimes I'll buy food out, fast foods or something, but I can cook in the RV. But mainly take advantage of the resources that are there. And once you start thinking like that, you become, I guess, a little bit more liberated, more free, because suddenly everywhere you go, you start to notice what you can use that's pretty much available for free, and work, I know it's not free, but work, they usually don't really care that you're using the bathroom. That's what it's there for. They don't care that you're using the refrigerator, as long as you're not like putting all your stuff in there. You're putting a normal amount of stuff in there. That's what it's there for. So having work that lets you use all their facilities is like a big godsend. And hopefully you're in a job where you're making enough money that because you're not having to pay rent somewhere, you can actually save money. And that would allow you to eventually get your own place, get an RV or whatever. Now that I've been working, for a while, I'm actually at the point where I'm not like just dying, like barely making it. I'm actually at the point where I'm starting to be able to plan and say, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can retire and do this. And because I'm actually at the point where I'm spending less money than I'm taking in. And the other thing about is child support is easing off because my daughter is now grown up. So I'm down to one child, that helps a lot. People really don't understand what it's like when you have child support for more than one kid, and they pretty much pull your money. So, I was losing as much as 85% of my income was going to child support and student loans. 85% of what I take home. So now I'm down to one kid, so I'm actually having more money. So things are starting to get better on this end. And I am trying to get my software and some other stuff situated. Having the RV is it's a liability, but it's also a resource. It's an asset. And if I do it correctly, the RV can give me an opportunity to make more money. I may be able to get my software out. I may be able to do things that I couldn't do with just being in a van. So it just depends on your situation. I know if you're not in this situation, it's kind of romantic to think about doing it for fun. And it is fun. Like, when I had a job as a teacher and I was traveling cross country, it was fun. The van had the little living room space, and then we pulled over to sleep in it, one night. We tried it, and the wife didn't like it. But we tried it, but I liked it. I thought it was fine, and but I'm like, well, this is something I can't do with my wife. She's not into it. That was my ex-wife now. My current wife, we haven't tried a cross-country trip, but we might. We might even be worldwide. I don't know. That'll be coming in the future once I figure out what happens here over the next couple months, within the next year. But with the world situation, the way it is right now, it's very hard to plan. You don't really know what's going to happen next. You could end up getting COVID and dying in 2 weeks. So for those of you who dream of van dwelling and doing this kind of stuff, and you're waiting for retirement and stuff, I say this: you are never promised tomorrow. Okay, you don't know, like what is his name, Grant Imahara or whatever, the guy from Mythbusters. He had a brain aneurysm and died just like that. He was 49 years old. My coworker's dad got COVID and died in 10 days. 10 days. You don't know what the future holds. You only know where you are right now and your hopes and aspirations, and you can try to make long-term plans and stuff and try to implement them. But I would say that if all the joys in your life are stuff you're planning for 10, 20 years from now, you might be planning too far out, because you might never get there. You might die before that time. I would recommend, and this is just my personal experience, I would recommend having the long-term plans, but doing some fun stuff on the side. So if you're wanting a really nice, super rigged out RV or car vehicle, but you can't afford that right now, put a budget of maybe $1,000 and buy a cheap $500 or $600 van and fix it up and drive it around town and go camping and stuff in it. And you're like, well, that's not the real experience of what I want. It kind of, the gist of it, and it's cheap, and you're able to do it right now. Whereas if you say, well, I want to spend $50,000 and get a road check, or $100,000 and get a road check or whatever, well, that's a longer term plan and goal, and you might not ever get to that point. Whereas, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 might be doable, you know, and let's say you decide you didn't like it afterwards. Well, you could probably sell that and get your money back, because you're buying like a cheap van. Maybe you lose $500-$600. You know, people spend that on a hobby. So my advice would be, go for it, you know, responsibly. I mean, don't go crazy on it, but put a little bit of money into having fun right now, not planning something for 10, 20, 30 years from now that you might not even live long enough to see, especially in the world we're in right now, where things are just going crazy. I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. Is it Go Frugal says, I saw a guy chop his van DIY pop up using a solar panel as a new roof. So that's pretty neat, you know. You can get all sorts of neat ideas and stuff, and you save space, and you also save weight. I don't know about using a solar panel as a roof. I guess it would work, but you know, solar panel can get kind of hot because it's glass basically. Yeah, Cali Venture says, appreciate your advice. You know, I want to spend most of the year on the road. Don't have tons to spend. Don't need fancy inside the vehicle. Just want to see the U.S. And that's the key, you know, Cali. The key to living in a vehicle isn't really living in the vehicle. It's having a place that's a little bit secure. This is better than sleeping in a tent. You know, a bear could eat you in a tent. It could eat you in your van, but at least you got metal and glass protecting you. And you have the ability to cook food. You have the ability to sleep. You have the ability to have electricity to charge your cell phone, your GPS and stuff. So this is like glamping, super glamping, but it doesn't really cost a lot, you know? So if you're wanting to travel, I would say just get a decent vehicle. I would recommend spending the money on AAA Plus. It's like $100 a year, but they'll tow you up to 100 miles each time. And I think you get 3 to 5 tows. And what else? So you get AAA Plus, and you get your van or whatever, a cheap van. I wouldn't spend more than between $500 to $1,000 for a cheap van, but just try to make sure you get one that runs halfway decent. And then, you know, let's say it breaks down or whatever. Well, get another van and move the stuff if you design it so that you can take it apart and put it into another vehicle. You know, you can just get a new vehicle and trash the $500 van. Or if you have a little bit more money, you can get a little bit more expensive vehicle. But if this is just something you're wanting to play with, I wouldn't spend too much money, because the money you save on your vehicle and building it out and stuff is the money you can use when you go to a place. You maybe budget yourself to eat the food in the local food in New Orleans or whatever, so your money can be diverted. I am so blessed that I've been able to do a lot of things. Like, some people say, how come I haven't fixed my teeth? I take my children out and we do a lot of fun things that cost money. And I would rather do that with my kids than fix my teeth. And you're like, well, isn't fixing your teeth important? I'm 54 years old. Okay? I don't need to go out picking up babes. I don't have to look good anymore. I have a beautiful babe right now, my wife. But yeah, it'd be nice to get my teeth fixed and stuff, but it's not a priority. Having my children be able to enjoy themselves at an amusement park or something, that's more important right now in my life. Me being able to eat out every once in a while with my family is more important than. The reason I say that is trying to fix a teeth could be anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000. If I had $10,000, I wouldn't spend it fixing my teeth. I would be flying, once they lift the travel restriction, I'd be traveling around the world doing things. I'd be doing fun things, regardless of the teeth. Okay? I would rather take the money and put it towards experiences than putting it towards my teeth, which right now I think my teeth are good enough. And if I was trying to get a job or something like that, it would be important. But right now, where my job is, they've hired me already. They like me even without the teeth. And and because of the situation, I get to wear the mask, so it's not a big deal. And even if I don't wear the mask, they know me now, so I don't think they would fire me because of my teeth. It's not like I deal with the public. I do work with the public section where I work and stuff, but I don't really have a lot of interpersonal contact. I mainly clean. So it's actually an ideal job. I really like my job. Go Frugal says, every week I use my pressure cooker and a wood gas stove to cook a huge pot of beans and meat. Delicious and very affordable. I want to get another Prius, chop it, integrate solar, run AC on solar. Living out of a Prius is easier. Out of Florida, no way. Too much LEO. Hey, Claire, good to see you on here. Now that I bought my land, I live on less than $100 a month. That's just for my housing. I keep my temperature 68 in here. Winter, I spend less on power. Hey, Go Frugal. Do you have your stuff published? You might want to share that, because what you're doing is potentially a roadmap for people who are losing their homes and stuff. You've got a lot of experience and a lot of really good ideas on. It's not just living. It's like some people think that you're always in a survival mode. And you can be in a survival mode, but if your whole life is always a survival mode, that's a sucky life. You got to have fun stuff in it, and Go Frugal. You're talking about having 68-degree temperature, being able to cook, living less than $100 a month. Those are very good ideas. That's a goal. That's a goal for a lot of people, to be able to live within their means, to live off $100. That's fantastic. So I hope that you publish that information or make it available, as long as it doesn't endanger you. I will tell you about you going on YouTube. Once people know where you are and who you are, there are some people that have really severe psychological issues. So watch out for those people. But for the most part, I'm broadcasting again because I want to share these ideas, because right now I think the nation as a whole is about to have an influx of people who have lost their homes, and money situation is going down the shit tube. So ideas to save people money, ideas for making things work, I think they're very important right now, and with sharing. All right, Kelly Venture had to leave. see, just scrolling through here. I hope you guys are reading the comments made by Go Frugal. He's got some really good ideas on there. All right. It is late. It is night, and I do need to lock up. So I'm going to call it a night. I want to thank you all for joining me. I will try to do more broadcasts on a semi-regular basis. Just because I think it's kind of important right now. And hopefully some of the newer broadcasts will be showing, like, we're going to go over basic stuff. You know, just because I think basic stuff, so if somebody needed the information, you know, like how to get an inverter working and stuff like that. Most of it you guys already know if you've been on this channel, but for new people coming in, they might need it, like they have, because a lot of people don't prepare. They don't think and prepare for this kind of stuff till it actually happens. And then they, you know, so I'm going to try to make some videos that are like, obviously not these hour-long videos, but little 10-minute videos or something that just show people very basic stuff, like how to hook up an inverter, how to hook up a battery, how to hook up the ability to cook food. We've already done all this stuff, but maybe a whole new series, just really short, to the point, for somebody in an emergency crisis situation. So I want to thank you all for joining me. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Go Frugal. I hope you maybe do some videos and publish and show people this stuff in action, because I was reading some of your texts on the stuff you do, and I think that people would benefit from it, because you have some really good ideas. And the fact that you are living it, I think that is the biggest thing. Is a lot of people will have really good ideas, but unless they're living it and seeing it in action, you can have great ideas, but they don't really work in real life. You know what I'm saying? You can have really terrific ideas, but when you go to implement it in real life, there's all these little weird stuff that comes up that you don't really know unless you're doing it for real. So it's important to get information from people who are actually doing it, and you're seeing it as it really occurs, as it actually works or doesn't work. So until next time, everyone, take care. God bless you all. Please stay safe. Know that I'm thinking of each and every one of you. Have a good night now. Bye-bye, everybody.